I want to tell you why I'm so committed to the transition that Nativity faces. And for this, I need to share with you my father's wisdom as he came up to the point of retiring from his 45-year ministry in the Episcopal Church. And he said to me, you know, there are some corners a church will not turn unless they know they're going to have their rector with them. A church won't take on a major capital funds drive or a building project or a new mission venture in the community if they expect the chief priest or rector to leave as they start that process. That makes sense. But he also said there are corners a congregation cannot turn until a new rector is in place. You need that change, the new charisma, the new gifts, the new competence to grow, to change the direction, create a new ambiance and a new way of life for a congregation. Well, together we all have turned some corners, haven't we? I mean, I think of your participation in owning our future and how handily we wiped out significant capital debt on this building. A little ways to go, and that's being cared for. I was part of that. I not only helped to inspire to make it happen, but Lynn and I contributed $25,000 to the task, so much we believed in it. We regained our parish status. We have general fiscal stability that's based on strong personal stewardship and great competence in the financial office. We've stabilized attendance that had been sliding for, 4 years. We've taken a stand on an important public issue, same-gender marriage. We strengthened all the systems in the congregation, from property to communications to worship. And all those things, I think, were possible not because of my leadership, but because you all knew I would stay with you to see us through those things. Now, you've got some corners you need to turn as a congregation that you can't turn except you get a new rector. The congregation needs to grow financially and in terms of program vitality. We really need a net growth of 60 new members. I know nothing about growing a congregation. Never have grown a congregation I've served, not in 35 years. I know how to stabilize them. I know how to maintain enough growth that you don't slide backward. But net growth is a gift beyond my capacities. You need an ambitious outreach and a new mission. And many of you have got a head of steam for that, but you need a full-time executive if you're going to pull off a major new initiative. And though I'm full-time this year, that hasn't been possible the last 5.5 years. It isn't possible going forward. You need more involvement with the communities we serve, especially with the Episcopal Church in Minnesota and with clergy and other congregations. And that too has not been possible on a part-time basis here. Really anything beyond the status quo, which is being maintained, needs new leadership. So I'm ready to retire again. Life comes in chapters. One needs to take a close look at that in one's life. And you need to dare to close a chapter before a new chapter can open. People ask, well, what are you going to do if you're not here? I don't know what I'm going to do. I only know I can't answer that question until I embrace a new chapter and say, oh, that chapter's done. I'm not too tired to do this work. I'm not bored, but I am aware that I have served. I've left nothing undone. I have no guilt and no regret. And I need to allow a new chapter to unfold in my life, personally. I don't know what it will contain. I will not be looking for another way to do what I'm doing now here. This is, in fact, the end of my active priesthood. I think I'm going to be burying and marrying and baptizing people for a long time to come. I have to go this week to do a memorial service in California, and the following week to Pittsburgh to preach for a friend's installation as rector. So that kind of stuff goes on. But what are my feelings about all this? You have a right to ask and know. You've heard me say this before. This is the happiest congregation I ever served or ever been raised in. I want to continue for Nativity to be my place of worship. I need to be away after a new rector comes in for a while, depending on his or her ego strength. I'm urging you to find somebody with great ego strength so that my presence will not be a haunting nuisance to that person. Some of you have asked me not to retire, simply to take this job. That's very flattering. Someone else asked me, well, how do we protest this decision? How do we let you know we love you? And I've had this thought that if 2 or 3 of you would set yourself afire out in the parking lot in a kind of protest, that would please me.
Do you have us picked up?
I have 3 people in mind. That would please me. The other thing you could do is join me in appreciating the power of chapters, not just in my life, but in yours as well. And then, as time comes and our friendships continue, help me shape my next chapter as I've tried to help you all shape this one. Now, with that said, our senior warden.
One of the 3. So we're having a busy year this year, and a lot of it is just business as usual. We have all of our outreach, we have building and grounds to do. All the things that are on our list are happening. But in addition to that, we are faced with hiring a new priest for next year, and to make that task even a little bit more challenging, as I've gone through all the numbers and studied the numbers with everybody that's on our finance committee, our challenge is to make sure that we make payroll after we hire that priest. So there's those 2 things in front of us, and because those 2 things are in front of us, we've decided that we need to take on an every member canvas. And just to make sure everybody knows what that means, that means that we make a point of meeting with everybody in our congregation to find out what's on your mind with regards to what we're looking for in a priest, trying to figure out how we're describing ourselves as a community to potential candidates, and then finally to sort out how committed all of us are to being together as a congregation through 2015, so we know what both our commitment to Nativity is and our financial commitment is, so that we can put together a responsible budget. Okay? And so, let's see if I'm making sense in my notes to myself here. There's a couple of things that are going to happen. In May, we're going to go through and ask a group of people to be the canvassers. Okay? And maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but there's really just 2 questions that each of you have to be ready to answer yes to, depending on which question you're asked. So canvassers, if you're asked to be a canvasser, be ready to say yes, and that means that you'll go out and visit someplace around a half a dozen of our other congregants and ask a set of questions. It also means that you'll take on an obligation to go through a little bit of training so that we ask and record those questions in a similar way. Okay? And those who aren't the canvassers are the canvassed. Okay? And so that means that you have to be willing to say yes and invite somebody to your home. And if you make brownies, that'd be a plus. Or something like that, But be ready to have somebody visit you and have a conversation with them about how you'd like us to be presented as a congregation to a candidate. Okay? It's really important for us to be able to describe our church community and our suburban community to candidates. And there's a lot of work going on that front right now. Jonelle's organized a communications team. She's there to help us to communicate it. We need to give content to her to communicate. And so this canvassing effort, while we're listening, we're writing and recording, and then we've got to consolidate that information so it's presentable. And that's a task that a transition team is taking on. Okay? And the other thing that you have to be ready to do is think about what your financial commitment is to 2015. And so what we're doing is, rather than having a stewardship campaign in the fall, we're doing our stewardship campaign for 2015 now. So we get a very clear picture of where we stand going into 2015. And so we can offer a compensation package to a new priest that we can stand behind. And so we're moving that whole program forward by 4 months. Okay? But it'll take some ambiguity out of what do we have to work with in 2015 so we can make an offer and stand behind it. Okay? So there is a transition team, and a little bit what I tried to do when I put a team together is make sure that we have people that could listen and write, and then be ready to interview candidates. And so one of the things I wanted to do today is make sure that you know who those people are, so that as you have ideas, thoughts, or concerns, that you just need to make sure you get in front of that group, that you have somebody that you probably know you can talk to. So without, I guess I could do them in alphabetical order if I pay a little attention here. But otherwise, Deb Arnold has agreed to serve on the committee. And Ron McFall, I think Ron's around here. Okay. And Jane Bazell. Enid Karaoke. Saw our boys here this morning. Grace Carlson. And I think she's being back with our youth group. Kim Batham and Jim Joyner. So there's there's Jim. Okay. So that's our group that's going to lead this transition team. Okay? And the other piece of this is the stewardship effort. And John Stoa agreed to take that piece on. And so what we're doing right now is, because this is not just stewardship, nor is it just transition, we're trying to put together a package of material so you have something in writing to understand what's going on. And then, again, organizing this every member campus so that we get the right questions asked, recorded, and then consolidated. And so John and Ron together have agreed to lead that overall effort, and it'll probably be one of those two guys that are calling you to see if you will serve as a canvasser, and then of course the canvassers will be calling you to visit with you. Okay. And any questions up to that point as to what we're up to?
Yeah. Sure. Can you describe how the transition team was chosen?
So how was it chosen? So what I did is I flipped through the directory, because I don't have a very good memory for everybody here, and tried to pick some people that I knew that had been around for a while, some people who were new, and sort of spanned our demographic for age, tenure, experience, and just did that. And I know that there's some people that are interested in helping, and I want to make sure that you all know that I'm not expecting the transition team to do all this work by themselves. There's still a lot of writing to do, things to sort out. So if you're asked to help, or if you're interested in helping, then it's a matter of making your name known so that our group can and leverage their experience and their interest. But I wanted to try to make sure that we had a small enough group that we maintained our sort of our meeting agility and ability to get things done. But there's a lot of work to do. So those are the things that were on my mind. I didn't seek Bishop Committee approval when I did it. So. Yes.
Is there a process that the diocese expects us as a parish to be going through as far as like self-study or some 40-page document? Something I'm very familiar with, but wondering if the diocese, if that's appropriate at this stage, or if that's later, right before I'm curious about how invested they are in our self-study and also what the diocese does to help winnow out candidates if they do that. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so it's actually a great segue into the next little piece of my notes, things I want to talk about. So yes, the diocese, I'm trying to learn how to say the Episcopal Church in Minnesota every time. They decided that they're called the diocese, they're seen as corporate, and they're here to help sort of a thing. So it's, but yes, the diocese, the Episcopal Church of Minnesota, is interested in helping us, and they do have a program. And their program is called a missional assessment program. And we've looked at that program and started interacting with the staff that's part of the diocese. And the way the program's designed is exactly the steps we needed to do, because we read up ahead of meeting with the bishop and sort of understand the overall program that's occurred in the past. There's some things that the diocese can help us with. There's other things that given our schedule and their availability means that we're going to have to do some of those steps on our own, as opposed to relying on diocesan staff to help us. So their program, again, is called the Mission Assessment Program. It's a 6-step program, so I guess it's simpler than AA. But it does get at the same things that we're trying to do as a congregation. One is to make sure that we can articulate who we are as a group, be able to describe and understand the community that we all live in, and then be able to present what we've been able to commit to do together as a group, and maybe some of our aspirations for other things we would do. The other thing to know about the Episcopal Church of Minnesota is, in so many words, they do function as an employment agency for priests. So they do the headhunting for us, at least to a degree, and for sure their network of available priests and understanding who might be looking for a job is better than any of ours by ourselves. So the bishop is committed to helping us search. And when we met with Bishop Pryor and February 4th, it was clear in our meeting that he knew that we're both an important congregation in the diocese. I think we're maybe 6th, 7th, 8th largest Episcopal church in Minnesota, and we know it's an important job, but the bishop knows it is too. They want to make sure that we have the right person here to help us succeed. So yeah, they're in gear and engaged with us. Unfortunately, all their programs don't match our schedule, because I think we really need to try to make something happen in 2014 so we can go into 2015 with the new priest. I think I hit your points today.
Yeah, I guess one of the questions, you're having this meeting today, and it's really good that, and not everybody at Nativity is here to hear it. Okay. Do you have any plans, or does the committee have any plans to periodically, whether it be every month and a half, because this year is going to go by fast, to provide input, printed input, so we as a congregation have an understanding where you are at that particular point in time and where you need help?
So let's see, I don't have a program beyond the infrastructure that we put in place right now. So again, the idea is that we will get our canvassers organized with materials and trained in May and execute that every member canvas in June. And before we ever got that going, Janelle Joyner and the team put together a communications group to make sure that we get the word out. Some of the big things that we were concerned about early in the year and last year is that whatever we present to our priest candidates, we wanted to make sure that our website said the same thing. You know, it's not so good to say one thing over here and something over here that don't quite match. So making sure we're up to date and consistent in our message, I think will help us in our credibility. So Janelle's on the communication side, and again, that transition team is really charged with communicating what we learned and what we're trying to do.
Hey Doug, can I ask a question? What would be helpful? How would you like that communicated? What would be the consistent way to do that, a visual way to do that?
Since I brought it up, but most certainly, you know, my thoughts aren't the thoughts of everybody else.
Just looking
But
for ideas.
Just some feedback, some insight as to where you are and where you need help periodically, and that gives us the opportunity to respond
Okay.
where it's necessary, and gives a feeling that, in fact, you know, things are progressing the way you expect them to.
Okay.
I think all the normal avenues are helpful on e-notes, things in the bulletin, and things on the newsletter.
Yep.
All three of those, if you can cover all three of those maybe once every 6 weeks,
Okay.
I think would be, you know.
And I think the bulletin board in the hallway too could be used as a
Yeah, as long as people know that it's there. and
as an
when it's
updater.
going.
Okay.
I was also thinking that as he's asking about the congregation, I don't have a single thought in my head. And I'm thinking that, you know, that there's like stages, that stuff comes in. So when somebody says, oh yeah, that's what I think, you know, or, so, you know, to think of it in terms of some drafts, and then that we have the ability to respond to those drafts as they come out and be a part of the editing process, and, you know, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that score, Tom Appeals works for Microsoft. We're trying to figure out if we can get a little bit of an implementation with Microsoft. They'll donate software products, and maybe we can get sort of rolling blog or something. There's so many things to try to figure out how to do and hustle to make happen here. And then a little bit is just trying to figure out how it works and how normal it is to our communications. I'm used to, you know, more or less meeting over dinner here and something when, you know, when we're gathering for coffee. And so, like the Ellen Roods and us were out at a baseball game on Friday night, watched the Twins get mushed. But, you know, so, you know, Mary's, you know, focus was on, you know, how do you find somebody that can deliver a good sermon? You know, how do you interview? Yeah. And ever since I've been, how do you interview for that? You know, it's, you just, you know, sneak in the back, listen to them deliver wherever they're at now. So I've got those, besides trying to figure out how to make the budget work, I've got those things running through my head, and we just have to keep talking to each other and then thinking about how to get at sort of the root questions and make sure that we pick the right person. My Sunday school class, when I was telling, you know, we're just trying to sort out, just pick somebody who's wise. No big deal. So,
Over here.
I'll piggyback on what you were saying, that I thought this is maybe where you were going, but maybe not. Even if ahead of the canvassers going out, have a list of possible prompt questions so people can start thinking about what that conversation might be like. And it might not be the actual questions, but even some that you just put out here, so that people can start thinking about what they think, what they want.
yeah, And we do have some of those that are starting to come together, and the diocese in their program has a list of questions. I was looking at those questions and said, boy, those seem like quite normal questions that you'd ask, and I thought about them a little while, slept on them. And I think that back when I was involved in the mission strategy MSN, I think that I wrote a little piece for that. And I think those questions might have been something that I wrote before. So I was really glad I didn't write back and criticize the list.
The question is, did you get royalties?
No royalties at all. And actually, I think they've done a good job of expanding, sort of the implementation process. So, it wasn't like we spent 2 years on that thing, wrestling with how to write some things down and get some agreement. I actually thought that to a large degree that all that work was going to get flushed, and some of it showed up here and there.
Doug, you have a question over here?
Me. So I have a clarifying question based on what you were talking about with the diocese. So my first question is so it sounds like we might be using a little bit of their program, but are we not letting them screen any of our candidates? And are you the ones that are going to screen them, or how much of that program are we using?
Okay, so overall, their program is really designed as a self-help tool for us. Okay, and for us to form what it is that we want to be about. Okay? And that program is separate, so it runs parallel to and allows us to communicate to a candidate what we want to be about. I think that the first half of their program will help us articulate that, and we'll do that in combination with them to a degree, and then also independently, because we have to get that through to be able to articulate who we are. Okay. The second part of the program is really implementation. We have to decide again how much of that to use to get rubber to meet the road on our overall mission. Okay. I think that we'll probably be doing that program either simultaneous with the diocese helping us find a candidate, or after a candidate is taking the job. Okay. So that's that mission assessment program. Okay. The hiring process is for us to finally put the job out there, make the offer to the priestly community. Is that what you call it? To say, the thing that's running in the background to all this is we have, we will be a parish rather than a mission. And so the choice as to who we hire will be ours as a congregation. And so it's not for the bishop to approve who we finally hire. That's one of the joys, responsibilities, or of being a parish. Okay? And so the final decision is ours. And that's different. We got, the diocese worked really hard 6 years ago to convince us that Dennis was the right guy, but if they wanted us to take him, they could have just told us. So they did a good job of making us feel like it was our choice. So it's I might have been a little younger, a little more stubborn back then. But anyway, that is the process, and it is where we stand now as a congregation. So yeah, it is up to us to sort candidates and say no to the people that we don't think are a match, and then finally decide who we're going to work to live with going forward. Other stuff?
So Doug, assuming the assessment goes smoothly, right? When would that sort of be wrapped up, and then when would we be posting a job vacancy? I guess what I'm trying to get is it seems like we're running into the summer, which for all our good intentions tends to be a dead time year, which makes me think that we're going to have trouble completing the assessment on time, which was then going to push us back in terms of when we're gonna post an opening. So I'm wondering what your timeline actually is, and then also, what happens if we hit December 31st, 2014, and we don't have a priest identified?
So, let's see what, so, there was, we spent 9 years with Ann, and one of her big things to advocate was we had 52 equal Sundays a year. And we did okay with that for at least part of her tenure. And I think we're gonna be busy together this summer, so there's a reason to show up here as opposed to just to skate on the school year. Okay? I think we need to get what we're gonna say written in June and beginning of July. And part of the reason why I think it's important for us to push is if we want to consider candidates that have kids in school and and are outside of the Minneapolis-St. Paul or the metro area here, then I think we want to be able to advertise in time so that if there is that candidate that seems like the right match, that they can make a decision ahead of the school year. Okay? It isn't a criteria or a requirement. Don't get me wrong when I'm trying to guess who we got or that a name's already been floated. Okay, that isn't what I'm saying. But if we want to make it easy for somebody that has a family, I think it's easier for them to make a decision if they could do it this summer. It also doesn't mean that I'm trying to show Dennis the door early. Okay? But just to allow that as a choice. So I want to keep pushing the overall articulation of who we're looking forward to the front, at least the very front half of the summer. Okay? And so we're going to be busy and have it right in front of us. Right now, it leaves me a little uncomfortable that we'll get it all done and well written on that schedule. But I think we have to, drive ourselves as a community a little bit. The back half of the question is, suppose we haven't found the person we want to say yes to before 2014 expires. Dennis has given us a date. And I think the answer to that is we will work with a combination of priests in our community to find a way to have church on Sunday. We don't want to just go out of business because we can't figure it out by the end of the year. So, but I think that it's really good for us to keep in mind that we're working on a schedule. It's going to make church seem a little bit like business now and then. That we're actually going to try to get some dates. I guess church has to hit dates anyway. It'd be bad to have like Easter on the wrong Sunday. Just couldn't quite get organized. So we're on a schedule to make something happen.
I think we as a congregation have to commit to cooperation as well. If a canvasser calls you and says, I'd like to meet with you within the next 2.5, 3 weeks, don't put that in the to-do pile and never get around to it until 6 weeks later. That will be on us instead of on the committees.
Yeah. Feed them all brownies in the first week.
Is the area we're looking for priests limited geographically?
So, from my point of view right now, that's a yes or no question. It's less expensive for us if we find a candidate to a metro area, because then we probably don't have a moving expense, right? Nor do we have to find a way to get somebody to sit quietly in the back of wherever they're working now to figure out if they can do a good sermon. So all the search costs go down, moving costs go down, and it's a metro area candidate. I suppose the real answer to that comes out of how we do in our every member canvas, so we have an idea where we stand financially. And so, well, I'd like to say, yeah, we'll advertise to the world, and we'll go anywhere to get the best person. We will end up spending what we can afford.
candidates are out there right now that are available?
No, I haven't, I used to know the number of unemployed architects, but I don't have any idea what. So, no, I don't know where, I really don't have a sense of, you know, what the pool is. What I do know is that we are a relatively large congregation in Episcopal Church. We're a reasonable sized congregation overall, and so we should be an attractive job. I think we're looking for somebody that can deal with a church our size, manage a staff, manage us as congregants and volunteers. And so it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be somebody's first job as being a parish priest. Okay, so.
Another thought, we talked about moving expenses, and it's you know, financially, it would be better for us if we could get somebody locally. And I can see some advantages in that. With the moving expenses, let's suppose you found somebody on the East Coast or West Coast, which is a perfect fit, and you got some major moving expenses. Would the diocese be open to bridging that financial part of it for the short interim, so we can pay them back a little bit later if necessary, rather than feeling we can't do that because it's too costly and we have to go with another candidate just because of expense?
So my overall sense of it is, no, I don't think the diocese, I think they would end up seeing that as an operational expense rather than a capital expense, and expect us to figure out how to get that money together ourselves. We could decide as a congregation whether we're going to go down to Sterling and ask to borrow the money, but then we ought to have a good plan as to how we're going to pay it back. So maybe the thing to do is, you know, if you've, you know, when we're out and talking on the stewardship side, you know, if you know, the budget for searching for a priest outside the metro area is someplace in the $30,000 range. So if you've got money that you want to lay out there in contingency for that kind of expense, that's about the number to accommodate both the search process and the moving. You know, I could be a little bit on the high side on that, but it's in that range. So.
With Dennis leaving us, is Kathleen still going to be with us as our assistant?
I think Kathleen's willing to remain in the role she's in, and you know, so it's she hasn't said to anybody that I know that if Dennis is gone, I'm gone. So, okay.
That's true.
I just want to clarify, my understanding is that who the staff are and who the assisting priest is actually the decision of the rector. Is that not correct? So it's basically, it's up to whoever the new person comes in.
Sure.
They may seek advice from the parish committee, well, it's not the bishop's committee.
It'll be the
Vestry.
The vestry, but it's actually the decision, my understanding is the staff, and that includes assisting priest, they serve at the discretion of the rector. Is that not correct?
That's true. So, you know, it's that's very much true. And then I'll go back to my Sunday school class, the key criteria. Look for someone who's wise. So. Other questions about process? You're asked to be a canvasser. Be ready to do a little bit of homework to get ready in May. If you're going to be a canvassed person, be ready to have a serious conversation with the canvasser. And hopefully in the early part of June.
When you're finished, I'd like to say a word about next week's forum.
Okay.